A very good evening, one and all. Welcome to another Black History Month special with the Football Association. I am really looking forward to this one. We have got a stellar cast of presenters here, and also not only presenters, but also panelists who are going to be absolutely outstanding. We are going to be talking all things football, all things coaching, and also we'll be touching on obviously the month that is Black History Month. I need to do some introductions first of all. Pete Augustine, coach developer for London and South East. Hi Pete, how are you?
I'm very well, very
Excellent.
well.
Chris Powell, Spurs in England, and an absolute legend. Chris, very nice to hear from you again, and welcome, sir.
Thank you, Butch.
Thank
Good evening, everyone.
Paul Nevin, West Ham in England. Paul, flying high at the moment with West Ham. Thank you, and thanks for accepting our invitation, my friend.
You're very welcome. Good evening, everybody.
And of course, Michael Johnson, not only club engagement lead, but also working across the England age groups. Michael, I was going to say Jono, but it's good. Jono, good to see you, my friend.
Good evening, one and all.
Excellent. Look, we're going straight in. We have got approximately 17 questions from right across a number of different people. We're going to have 7 or 8 public questions at the end of it. The first 10 are going to be me. It's a quick fire, but hopefully a couple of minutes for each one. And the first one, and I'd like to kick it off with Chris, really. This is a really, really important month for a number of different reasons. But Chris, for you, what does Black History mean? Black History Month mean to you, my friend?
Well, Butch, for me, it's a celebration and appreciation of Black excellence, of achievements, to remember what's gone before me, us, the positive impact of certain individuals and what we've given to the world. I think Black History Month, it's great that we have a month. I know for me it's celebrated 12 months of the year, but in many ways it does come to the forefront of organisations. You watch TV at the moment, there's Black programmes on, and I know they're on throughout the year, but actually it's a bit of a statement. So for me, it's just a celebration and appreciation of Black excellence and achievements.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to go to you, Paul. Paul, Black History Month, what does it mean to you, my friend?
I think it's very, very similar for me as well. I think it's a time for reflection. And I think, like Chris said, you see the TV and some great stories to look back on of individuals and not forgetting the struggles that people have gone through to get us to where we are today as well. And I think it's just a little remembrance as well of some of those things. So kind of a celebration, time to reflect, and also a kind of time for education as well. There's lots of stories that sometimes go untold that are forced to the front of public viewing. And I think, even for myself, some of the things I learn at this time of the year are really, really important. And I think for the younger generations as well, I think it's a really important time for the kids and stuff, and to celebrate the achievements, as Chris said. And not just about excellence as well. I agree with Chris, it is excellence, but it's the daily struggles that people go through. And I think that they need to, there's heroes that are not always wearing the badge or in the front line. And I think it's to respect and honour them as well.
Thank you so much, Paul. Jono, over to you.
I agree and concur with a lot of what the guys have already said. I think, listen, let me deal with the disappointing thing. It's 1 month. I think the history should just be something that is embedded, entwined in what we're learning in schools, such as the culture and the fabric of English culture. The history dates way back before slavery days, which apparently for some schools that may be the start of it. And so for me, there's a whole education piece that needs to happen. But there's no getting away from the fact that what I see on the TV, what I see being spoken about in schools in this particular month is a positive. But, it's not just about the 1 month. This is something that I believe, especially when you consider what we're seeing in modern times at the minute, that should be taught right the way through the 12 months of the year.
Thank you so much, Jono. It's fascinating. We've called this Black English and Proud. It'll be really interesting as we go further into the webinar, as we delve deeper into what true inclusion looks like, but also that sense of belonging, which is an interesting one. Next question, something for all those coaches out there, a question that a number of people always ask: what inspired you to get into coaching? Michael, if I kicked you off first this time, my friend.
I think for me, the opportunity to work with people, fundamentally, for me, it's about giving back from your experiences, and the opportunity to work with people of different age group, different backgrounds, different cultures, different genders, you name it. That for me was something I really wanted to get into coaching. And then once you look at as you start to go on your journey, you start to look at, okay, which ones out there potentially do what you do or similar to how you look. And there was very few. And so the ones that inspired me were people like Keith Alexander, God bless him and rest his soul, who unfortunately passed. And quite sadly, when I was coming through, probably 10 years ago as a coach, there wasn't too many that looked like me. So Keith was definitely somebody. Seth Pod is another one. And Cyril Regis, a man that I knew and grew to really, really admire, was the one that really mentored me through my early years as a coach.
Wow, there's some serious names there. Paul, over to you. What inspired you, Paul, to get into coaching?
Well, I think it's like all of us is firstly it's a love of the game, and I think it's just having been involved at whatever level you play, and then it's continuing that, and especially in and around kids. And one of the parts of my journey was I used to play in the US. So I did a lot of the soccer camps when I was still playing, and that was kind of my first introduction. So grassroots, as a lot of people listening, probably working. And that was massive for me, just being able to deliver the game, especially in the US, because it was new to a lot of kids that I was working with. And I remember one of the things that I ended up doing was opening an inner city soccer program, which was in the black neighborhoods or projects, as they called them over there. And it was exposing the game for the first time. And that was something that will always stick with me, So that was massive. And it really gave me kind of the bug to continue and rise through the levels as I have.
Fantastic. Thanks, Neb. Really appreciate it. Chris, for you, what inspired you, my friend?
I think it was more a natural progression for me from playing. I was very lucky to play until I was 40, even though I was struggling to last 90 minutes in those days. But I heard Ian Wright and the South African rugby captain speak about white allies recently. And it kind of resonated with me because I had Nigel Pearson. My last club was Leicester, and I was going to retire. And he actually said, I'd like to take you on my staff. And I'd already did a bit of coaching when I was at Crystal Palace in the Charlton, but not much. But he actually said, you have a real empathy and a real knowledge, and it shouldn't be lost to the game. And actually, I feel you can coach and manage. So he gave me almost like an apprenticeship in coaching at senior level. I had to learn pretty quickly, but it was invaluable for me. And it was inspiring, really, because there was someone actually saying to me, he didn't think about my colour or anything. He just said, I think you can do it. So come on my staff, help us, we're in the championship, and lend your experience. You've been doing it anyway as a player with the younger fullbacks. You've just been helping them with their game. And I actually thought, you know what, I want to do this. And Jono mentioned Keith Alexander. Actually, that year we played Macclesfield, and he was the manager, and I had 20 minutes with him afterwards. And I said, actually, I want to do what you're doing, Keith. And he sat there and he just said, kid, get on with it. Get on with it. Show people what you can do. If you've been given an opportunity to coach with Nigel, take it, because you don't normally get these opportunities. And people like Noel Blake and Terry Connor were coaching, but it always seemed a bit distant from me, I always felt as if, wow, that's far away. These guys have done brilliant, and how they've lasted is fantastic. And actually, looking at them at the start of my own journey, I thought, well, they've got through it. You know, Terry's been coached for a long time, obviously, Blakey at league level, and obviously the FA. And those guys, you know, in their own small way, were inspiring because there wasn't too many. You know, so you knew who they were. I knew who they were.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, Powell? Because we talk about like role models. If you can see it, you can be it. And all three of you have been inspirational, wearing the three lions in particular. Just going to go to some particular questions now, just aiming at both Chris, Michael, and Paul. But Chris, I wanted to really start with you because you know, we can't not talk about that incredible summer with England, that amazing run to the final at Euro 2020. You truly galvanised a nation. How was that experience?
It was quite phenomenal. What happened in the summer. I think sometimes you put a bit of context to it. In we had lockdown. We had, you know, near enough 18 months, 15 months at the time of the country being on the back foot. And if you look back to the lockdown, we actually came together. You know, we were shopping for neighbours who couldn't get to the shops. We were clapping for NHS. We were doing things we don't normally do. And there seemed to be a real coming together. And we all know the power of football. We all know what it can do. So to have a tournament primarily for us at Wembley, it was almost a home tournament, really, even though it was around the rest of Europe. It just seemed to just go on from what we'd all been through. It brought everyone together. It inspired everyone. And I think the way it was organised by Gareth and his support staff, I just felt that, you know, the quality of player we had as well, if we could get anywhere near our potential, there was a real opportunity for us to progress. You know, Gareth on the first day said we need to get 7 games under our belt. 7 games gets you to the final, and then we're in the final, and who knows what can happen. So we had something to aim for, and I just felt as it went on game by game, I just felt that the country was just enjoying being together, having the football as something that everyone could be involved in, and it certainly did that.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was some summer, I'll tell you, and it's one that I'm sure a lot of people will not forget. Michael, Jono, just over to you. You've had a spell with the 21s. You're working across the age groups. How have you found the experience working with England?
It's been a wonderful experience working with the different age groups, being able to see the different levels of the pathway from an under 15 and then seeing what they have to do to potentially get to the under 21s, the standard of the under 21s at this current moment. You know, there's been some wonderful players that have gone into the senior team, you know, over the last 18 months or so. But I think for me, working with the younger ones, it's really, for me, it's about really untapping into that potential that they have and finding about who they really are as human beings first. I think it's been great to really peel back, take off your shirt. Let's have a conversation about, you know, your background, your culture, where you come from, your friends, your school, because they're still youngsters and they are somebody. And I think that really helps as you start to understand the youngster. That helps form how you actually coach and interact with that individual. And for me, that's been really, really wonderful to meet and really getting really insight to some of our fantastic young talent.
Thank you, Jono. I've got to say, okay, I remember turning on the TV and looking at Paul Nevin and Chris Powell and the national anthem in that dugout, and I've got my phone out. I'm taking photos. I'm sending them to people. Look at this! What? Wow! I'm going, and like the amount of messages that I got back about that is amazing. That just gives everyone so much hope. So much hope. Nevs, this is your second spell with England. How have you found it, the experience compared to the first one?
Well, it's been absolutely superb, but both experiences. And I think it's kind of a credit to what the FA were running, really, because I think I'm the example of the process working, if you'd like. So the first time I came in, it was on the elite placement program. So I was at Brighton at the time. And it's I tell the story for the coaches out there, but I was just normal planning training in the morning at Brighton, and the gaffer came in, Chris Hughton, that obviously deserves a mention whenever we talk about fantastic black coaches and role models. But he came, he goes, "Nevs, I've got something for you. You're going with England." And I was like, okay. And then he explained what it was about, and it was like a bit of shock, to be honest. But it was, but I got the opportunity to work alongside Gareth, who I'd known a little bit before. And I think for the coaches out there as well, I think it's normal when you step up a level. I think there's a little bit of nerves, a little bit of anticipation of what am I walking into. And just to be prepared as I could about, a bit of research on all the players that could be in the squad, a little bit of knowledge. If I'm ever asked anything by the staff, then I'm across it. And I've always found that bit of extra preparation for any experience you're not quite sure about can stand you in good stead. So that was pretty much it. And I went in and I thought, it might be a little bit, I'd be on the side, a little bit of observation, which I was totally happy with. But from day one, and I think Chris and Jono will concur, I mean, Gareth just makes you feel welcome and part of his team and the culture immediately you set foot in the building. So all the fears and anticipation that I had vanished, and I just felt part of the team straight away. So that was brilliant. And then it was just meeting the players. And I think the term that you mentioned before, somebody's mentioned it already, we'll probably refer to it later on in the webinar as well. It's about humility. And I just felt across the board, staff and players, big time players, there was that belief and unity and just a bit of humility about them as well. And a pride in putting the shirt on. And I was so impressed by what I saw on the first experience. And during that one, we got to the Nations League final. So unfortunately lost to Holland and ended up beating Switzerland in the third, fourth playoff. And, that was a step. It's a step on the journey that hopefully will concur that next November. But, it was vital. Losing at that stage, as Powell will know from the Euros, it's bitterly disappointing. But it's another step. And when you look at the journeys, other teams that have gone on to win major competitions, there's a process and a journey they've been through too. So we're on track. So that was fantastic. But then, obviously, resulting this season with the call up to actually the work that I'd done, Gareth gave me a call and said, would I like to come be part of the staff on a contractual basis? So I was absolutely delighted because, obviously what I'd done, felt that I was the quality to come and help the group and contribute, have responsibility and accountability for my role. So this time has been even more enjoyable because of that accountability, and I've got a real role to play. There's the pressure that comes with that, but I absolutely love it. And the other little bit is working with Powell, which is fantastic. And I don't like to say anything, Powell. I just need a drink while I'm just. All right. Okay.
Little reminder there.
And the staff and everything, super. I'm loving it.
Listen, I can't talk being Arsenal, I tell you, so I'm going to keep quiet. I'll keep out of that conversation. Look, question 4, you've all worked with England's top talent. What is your approach to coaching such elite players? There are coaches out there listening at the moment, probably wondering what is that approach? How do you go about it? And I wanted to kick off with Jono, then I'll go to Chris and then Paul. Jono.
I think for me, there's a couple of things I would say is clarity. They all want clarity. They definitely want honesty. Don't sugarcoat it. Tell it how it is. And I think for me, as I previously mentioned, I'm a people's first. It doesn't matter to me if you're, if it's Zinedine Zidane or if it's an under 15 from Fleetwood. You treat people how you treat people. There's a respect that comes with it. There's an authenticity to who you are. And that comes out in all what you do. So it doesn't really matter about the levels for me. It's about you being true to who you are. And I think if you do that, then you automatically command a certain degree of respect. Yes, you need to have a degree of knowledge and understanding about what you're coaching and who you're dealing with the team. But I think fundamentally, it's about how you deal and interact with people.
That is superb. And I think that there's a real nugget there for the coaches out there listening. You know, I'm hearing clarity, honesty, authenticity. Chris, your thoughts on obviously coaching such elite players, your approach?
Jono's nailed it for me with regards to clarity and honesty and authenticity, without a shadow of a doubt. But I would add to that and almost say that, you know, your lines of communication to players of that ilk is vital. So I suppose that comes with the clarity, really. And one big thing which I've noticed, I'm sure Paul has, you know, with senior players who are at the top, high performers, is your ability to build relationships with them.
Yeah.
Now that may take a while, but you know, Gareth's ability and one of my own traits, I like to build relationships with players. Now, I think every coach listening in will say they try and do that, but there are ways and means of doing that. And does depend on time, does depend on where you are, whether you're in a club situation or with a national team. But I think with those real elite players, because, like Jono said, you have the technical knowledge, they have the technical ability, it's all there. But actually, you have to try and get them to buy in. You know, elite performers, you know, you have to see exactly what they need. And I think that just comes from having a relationship and building that over time.
Love that. Love that, Powell. You love that, building relationships. Another one for the coaches out there to think about. Anything you want to add to that, Paul?
I think they've absolutely covered it. I think that the humility bit and being authentic is overriding. I think they respond to that. And I think that the real top ones, they still want to get better. So they look at you and go, what can you do to make me better? And I think that, you know, sometimes the simple, basic stuff, and sometimes it's almost like, well, I don't want to mention that because it's this player. But the basic fundamentals from the bottom to the top, and that's what's gotten them to the very top. And they do that every day. So if it's simple passing, you do it at a pace that's match pace and your touch is immaculate. And it's drilling down, keep drilling down, setting the standard in your practices and the training itself. And the players will respond for that. And the tighter and the more that you drive them and the more challenge you can provide, I think they respond to that and appreciate that.
That is superb. What can you do to make me better? I hope everyone's got their notepads out, I tell you. Here's the question 5. With a number of aspirational coaches on the call, what would be your one piece of advice in pursuing a career in the game? Paul, if I go to you first, one piece of advice, then Chris, then you, Mike, then you, Jono.
Well, I think what's been good for me is just trying to be as prepared as I can for any opportunity. So your education, getting your licenses, speaking to people that are already in game, that are in situation, coaches that have good experience and broad experience. And the other thing is sometimes, depending on where you're trying to get to, is what else can you offer the environment as well? So there'll be a lot of coaches that are not full-time at the moment that have other jobs, could be teaching, could be working in a store, it could be, but you'll have other skills. And I think sometimes to celebrate and use the other things and skills and components you have in your life, whether it's being a parent and those skills going into an academy, is don't underplay the other side from the technical, tactical and the football bit. It's you know, celebrating what your skills are outside of that. And can you bring those things into the environment to make it a better place?
Fantastic. Cheers. Powley, over to you. One piece of advice for those pursuing a career in the game?
Patience and persistence. I think patience for yourself as a developer, as a coach, you know, it can be quite slow progress with regards to yourself and where you're going, but you know, nothing's ever easy as a coach. So, you need patience for the players that you're coaching. I think that's very big. We all want to do things straight away, but it may take a bit of time, obviously age dependent. And I think persistence, when you think of, nothing in life is easy, nothing. And when you're a coach of colour as well, we understand, the history with regards to that. So it's sticking to your task, sticking to what you love, what you want to do, where you want to get to. And, I feel that that's always very important for coaches to have that bit of patience, but definitely that persistence, to get to exactly the level that you aspire to.
Thank you so much. I mean, just from Nev's, I've got to be prepared, get qualified, transferable skills from yourself, patience and persistence. Before I go to Jono, when we see three coaches of the quality and the humility that you guys have, the one thing that a lot of people see is that they see you at the summit, they see you at the top of your game. What coaches fail to realize is that you climbed a mountain to get there. And it's that mountain that they don't see. They just see you at the summit right now, but they don't realize the amount of times that you was on that mountain, the hard yards that you did, often without anyone knowing the work that you're doing. So I think that is something that resonates with me an awful lot. Jono, a piece of advice you'd give, one piece of advice you'd give, my friend.
Well, before I answer that, I'm still climbing the mountain, may I tell you. The summit, I've not reached the summit yet. Yeah. So there's still a way to go. What I would say, my piece of advice would be, I've spoken about being authentic. I think it's the number one for me. I mean, there's so many quality coaches out there, Pep, Mourinho, and there's so much information. And sometimes, we take that information on and we're trying to want to deliver exactly in the way that they do it. And yes, we're all stealing, we're all taking from somebody, but it's how you can utilize that, but be true to who you are and the kind of brand of football that you would like to see and impose on your organization. I'd also say coach wherever, whenever. Get practice, get time on the grass, get times on the AstroTurf. If it's concrete, get time on the concrete. Just get out there and coach. Because the more hours you spend is the more time you sharpening that brain, sharpening that IQ. Even if it goes wrong, then it's something to review and reflect when it goes wrong. So for me, it doesn't matter the levels. You've got to get out there and coach. I've coached all kind of levels, universities. I've coached under 10s, under 9s. I've coached at holiday clubs when I've been on holiday and just want to get hours in. And I think the last part of that is watch. If you can get out there and you're fortunate enough to watch coaches work, again, you take your notepad, take your notebook and make notes. You might find something that you would do different, or actually that coach should have done it this way. That's fine. You do it whatever way you want, but the more information, the more insights that you can get, it's the more you're preparing yourself for when you actually get to somewhere where you want to be.
It's brilliant, Jono. Love that. Authenticity. Brilliant. Okay, this is a quick fire question. Literally 15 seconds on this one for each one of you. I'm going to start with Paul, then I'm going to go to Michael, and then I'm going to come to you, Jono. Still on the point of advice, what is the best piece of advice you ever received and why? Over to you, Paul, first.
Just to have belief in myself. And I think that's it, that you'll have tough times, as Jono said. There's this journey, it's up and down, and there's no straight line to the very top, and we're all still striving to get to where we need to be. But again, it's having that belief. You'll make mistakes. Don't let that get you down. Learn from those mistakes. Seek support. Have a good network around you that also support you at the good and bad times. So that's it, really. Just believe in what you're doing and keep striving for it, that resilience.
Love that. Powley, best piece of advice?
I can't remember what coach it was, but he said to me, do your best to inspire.
Wow.
That's what he said. Do your best to inspire. And he was talking about myself, because as Paul just said, the ups and downs of losing your role at whatever organisation you're at, you might be out of the game for a while. You've still got to believe in yourself and inspire yourself. But he was also talking about individuals. When you're coaching people, you're coaching teams, or you're coaching young, an under 9 or a senior player, do your best to inspire them, because you can instill a real purpose in them then, a real drive. And, they may go beyond where they thought they might get to it, or yourself as their coach. So, do your best to inspire.
Love that. Have belief, do your best to inspire. Jono, over to you.
And
this piece of advice.
This one's been said many a times, but I'm going to repeat it. Neil Warnock said to me one time, if you're going to get sacked, make sure you do it your way. And it really resonated with me in terms of, whether you're a youth team coach, whether I was doing the under 18s or fortunate enough to be a head coach. Yes, take the advice on it, but do it your way. Because if it goes wrong, fundamentally, you have to stand by your decisions. And there's nothing worse than actually doing it somebody else's way. Take the advice, of course. I'm not saying don't take the advice, but there's nothing worse than, going against what's true to you, and then actually it goes wrong, and you may be dismissed from that role, but you weren't true to what you believed in. So for me, really, really hit home about making sure no matter what level you work at, you take the advice on board, but ultimately it rests with you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Do it your own way. Brilliant. We're doing a piece of work at the moment at the FA around our coach development model. We're looking at coaching, and we're looking at attributes and the skills of coaches. And the attributes, when we started thinking about it, is what does that coach bring to the party? If I was to ask, and I'll start with Paul again, then Chris, then Michael as well. What coaching attributes do you bring to the game?
Well, I think first of all, it is an empathy, because I always think you're dealing with human beings, and it was Jono at the beginning that said, it's about those relationships, and the best coaches can forge good relationships because you're trying to find the motivation for each individual, and that will be different. And if you can get that, then the messages can get through and the communication works much, much better. So I think having empathy and trying to build relationships. But then the next thing I think for myself personally is about my planning and organization. I really, really do believe in that. I try to be as prepared for every eventuality on the pitch within the club that I can be. And sometimes you've got to react and, spontaneity and have that. But if it's off a plan, it gives you a greater chance that you've tried to think of different scenarios, as I said, on and off the pitch. And I think planning and organisation for myself and building relationships with players are the main things.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Chris, over to you.
I'm in total agreement with Paul there, with what he said. For an attribute for me is enthusiasm. To be enthusiastic about, the session and the time you're going to be spending together on the grass or wherever you may be. I think that's a real key attribute of a coach. Without a doubt, the organisation and planning is paramount. It shouldn't really be off the cuff if you can help it. But for me, with myself, I think having enthusiasm, empathy is a big one. I think that's got bigger of late, over the sort of recent years. I don't think that was there many years back, but I think now we're in a world and we're in living in a time now where we've got to understand where people are from. We've got to understand the background, and I really believe you should do that to the best of your ability. But definitely enthusiasm is a big trait for me, to be out there looking to improve not only yourself but more importantly the players in front of you.
John, I had the pleasure of you supporting me and delivering a session at St George's Park, and I came off incredibly inspired. It was just amazing. Like your personality just absolutely shone through. Tell me a little bit about the coaching attributes you bring to the game, my friend.
I'm humbled to hear you say that, Butch. But I think the word authenticity keeps cropping up with me. Gotta be true to who you are. I can't be anything different. And I've never been a ranter and raver. I've never been one of those, even though those managers are still around, who throw cups and that. But I think there's always that, professionalism, the discipline side of things. You create an environment that you want people to succeed and to flourish. So for me, it's about creating the right environment. You can put flowers in a certain corner and it doesn't grow. But if you put it in the right spot and just leave it, it will grow, and you continue to water that. So for me, it's about creating the right environment. And then finally, enjoyment. I've got to enjoy what I do. As long as people are doing it in the right and proper way and being professional about it, we've got to do it with a smile on our face.
Yeah.
I think life's too short, to walk around with you look like you've been smacked on your bum. You've got to enjoy what you do. You've got to smile. You've got to, there you go, Paul. I can see your teeth. Lovely smile.
Brilliant. I got the 3 E's there, and then for all the coaches out there: empathy, enthusiasm, and enjoy. Brilliant. Now here's one for all the coaches, and this is one that they definitely will have their notepads ready. I'm gonna 3 non-negotiables in coaching for you. What are your 3 non-negotiables? The 3 things that you definitely would want to see, regardless of what happens. John, I'm going to go to you first. Then I'll go to you, Nevs, then you, Powley. John,
ask that question, Butch, again. Is it
the 3 non-negotiables in coaching for you? What are they when you start a session? What are the things that absolutely you would expect, regardless?
I think number 1 is respect. You've got to respect your players. You've got to respect the background of your players. So there's a respect from the coach for me that passes on to the players. You've also got to have an understanding of your topic. So that means that you cannot be going in to deliver a session and you've not studied, you've not really understood what you're going to deliver. So if you're going to stand there and deliver to a group, you've got to be prepared and be prepared to do it to its maximum. And I think, again, the final one is for me is to showcase that humility and that authenticity again. And I just keep coming back to that as a coach, I want to see the coach for who he really is. I can watch a session and fundamentally understand the background of somebody who's working just by the mannerisms, the conversation, the tone of the conversations, the empathy. So for me, your authenticity comes through your coaching sessions.
Thanks, Johnny. Nevs, over to you. 3 non-negotiables for you in coaching.
Well, I think one of the things we always talk about is hard work. It is not easy. And I think it ties into the preparation, the organisation, the research of your players. What do you know about your players in your squad or the players you're potentially going to be working with? What are their motivations? Do you reflect on your own capacities, what your skill set is, what you can improve? How can you get better as a coach? So I think that hard work never stops. And I know the guys online that they'll know, the different roles that they're holding, 2-3 roles. And some people that are listening, you'll have part-time jobs, you'll have the family, you'll have the coaching. That is not easy. So that hard work and organisation and your planning of your day, that doesn't go away, whatever level that you work at. So it's going to be hard, but the rewards will come. I think that resilience ties into that you're going to have your good times, your bad times. And as you progress through the levels, your head gets higher above the parapet and there's an opportunity. As we've said, we've been out of work, all 3 of us at different points. And that is a knockback. And it's easy to point the finger and say, that wasn't fair and this happened. But it's the reality of what happens. And then it's about that belief in yourself that I mentioned before, to bounce back. What have you done? You review your performance. There'll be things that you've done well, haven't done so well. And you go to your network for the support and feedback. And you build and you work again and you educate yourself and you reinvent yourself. So those things still tie in. So the resilience and the hard work tie together. And the final one that John has pulled again is the humility, because you can be in a great moment in your career. And I just always fear for the ones that start to forget where they came from and start to look at others and be critical, because it's coming around the corner, and you need to remember where you came from and as many people you can help on your journey as you can, they will be there for you at times of difficulty. And those times of difficulty are around the corner. So being humble, have that humility for yourself, for the players, for other staff, because that will be needed.
Brilliant. Powell, over to you.
There's not much more I can add after those two guys.
Yeah.
But I think your standards that you set is non-negotiable for me. You set the standard. They look at you. You earn their respect by the way you act as a coach, by your knowledge and organisation of what you're about to do with your group or with an individual. And I think that should just continue. That should be you. That should not be moved from ever as a coach. And the resilience is a big one. You know, I wrote these down earlier. I just wrote down standards as a coach, organisation, knowledge and resilience. And, you know, I think you've got to have that. You've got to be armed with the knowledge. But I think you know exactly with regards to resilience what can happen or what will happen, unfortunately. But actually, you know, if you stick to your true self and your beliefs that actually that resilience will be in you to overcome and go again and go again and go again. All three of us have done it. And, you know, I come off piste a little bit is, you know, I've spoken to Paul in camp and I know Paul, but actually I don't know a lot about his journey, and he told me a little bit about his journey. And when I was in my room, I was thinking, wow, I didn't even know how much and what Paul has done with regards to being with England in the senior team. You know, it's a webinar on its own, to be honest. But actually, you know,
don't worry, Nez, we'll get you in for that one.
But it just goes to show exactly, you know, he's kept his standards. You know, we've all done it in our own way, and we've shown resilience. And you know, we know that actually, you know, whatever happens, keep those non-negotiables, keep those standards high, keep the respect of yourself and the group high.
Thank you. Right, couple more from me before we go to the public questions, and these are a couple that I think a number of people would like to know the answer to. Look, this England team has created a real sense of belonging and real identity, and even for those in the past, possibly like myself, who have felt slightly disconnected for the team, have been truly inspired. Why do you think that is? And Chris, if I can start with you, then go to Paul, and then Jono.
I'll tell you now, it's because of one person. It's because of Gareth.
Yeah.
Because of Gareth. Gareth has looked at the identity of the England team. He's looked at modern Britain, and he said it should reflect society. So he's very much of the ilk that we should have a belonging. I mean, you've put the words in there, and actually we were all given a book on our beds when we walked in our rooms in the Euros of a book called Belonging by Owen Eastwood, who actually came in and spoke to us for half an hour. And it's about this moment is our turn, but actually it's going to be someone else's turn in 20 years' time. And actually you've got to respect the people that wore the shirt 20 years ago, 40 years ago. So he looked in depth into how we could reconnect with the public, how we can reflect. I mean, you watch England now, you look in a crowd, and I'm seeing black people, I'm seeing Asian people, I'm seeing people that wouldn't have been anywhere near an England game, even maybe 10 years ago. And now people feel part of it, they feel connected because the team's relatable, the squad is relatable. And actually now they see Paul and myself on the sideline, they see Jono walking around St George's Park. Actually, the power of that goes beyond what people think, goes beyond that, oh, we're just working. We're actually inspiring. And I think the team is reflective of that. And Gareth has ask players to speak up and don't be afraid, regardless of where you're from. If this is how you feel, you say it. It's an incredibly brave thing to do, but people have embraced it, the players have embraced it, and I do feel we've connected. I really do. I think the team now it reflects what Britain is right now.
Brilliant. Paul?
Listen, I think it's exactly so. It's down to one man. All the things that Chris has just said, he's unbelievable. He's so impressive. And I think that comes across what you see in the media. That's how he is. Thoughtful, thinks of individuals, thinks of society as a whole, takes on political messages, which is a tough thing in the role that he's in. But I think he's got his value base and he knows what he believes in, and that comes out and that comes across. And I think just one of the spin-offs in the culture was, there's a little story. It was, I've been to a couple of hostile environments, me and Powell, during recent games, and it was post-Hungary. There were some issues in the crowd, and what I felt was something that had changed. And I felt following the next couple of days, one of the black players came and spoke to Powell. And Powell was just saying, how did you feel about it? And just having a discussion about it. And the player turned and said, well, what was it like when you were playing? And what were your experiences? And I'm thinking, 15 years or 10 years ago, 5 years, he wouldn't have had anywhere to go and ask that question. And I think, wow, that's fantastic to have the resource of an ex-England player on the staff that can have some sort of, understanding of empathy of those situations from his career. And I thought, things have changed.
Wow. Thank you so much. It's just a power of listening to the stories that not only inspires me, but also gives me hope. Jono, your thoughts on how this team is just so different from any other?
I just think, and it's great to hear that the two guys talk like that. I just think this team, it just mirrors modern day Great Britain. And I think once this team takes the field, and you can associate as a person at school with what some of the behaviours we see in the camp, I thought that was tremendous. Getting an insight into some of the interest, the fun, and it brought so many people closer to it. So I've got 3 boys. All my 3 boys were daily tuning into what was happening, and then were mimicking certain things and talking about it at home. And I think that ultimately brings together a real strong unity. And added to that, I think everybody's mentioned Gareth, but I just want to draw your minds back to the letter that he wrote before this tournament. And if anybody's not read the letter, I would really encourage you to read the letter that he wrote before. Sometimes we can say the aftermath yet, but this was something that he discussed and wrote before, how this could actually galvanize a country. And I think what we've seen on the football field was a coming together of different people from different backgrounds, different age groups, different cultures that lived together for 6 weeks. You try and live together for 6 weeks with people that you don't know. Some of you might say it's difficult living together with your own families for 6 weeks. But living together for 6 weeks from people from different backgrounds, and the way that they did that in amongst all the adversity and took this country to the furthest that they've been since 1966, it's a success story within itself. And you can leave the football outside and park that for a minute. But what that did for Great Britain in this particular climate of George Floyd, of what we see in America, of what we see happening on our own doorstep, it really brought together that we can achieve something special when we unify. And so when I look at the leader, Gareth Southgate, it gives me great pride to sit here in this T-shirt and talk about that particular story and how the effect of that and the ripple effects are still going on today.
I think the country has reclaimed the shirt. Thanks, Jono. That's really interesting. Final one from me, and then we're going to go to some questions from the public who've been sending questions in as well. we talked a little bit about the England team, that they're more than a football team. They've stuck to their values around making a clear statement about racism, especially taking the knee before every game. And this is the final part of the question. Props to Colin King. Everyone who hasn't heard of him should know Colin, who's an absolute legend. And his question was, what would true race equality progress look like once we raise ourselves from the knee? I'll go to you first, Paul, then Jono, and then I'll finish with Chris.
Well, I think one of the things for me is that we talk about black coaches, and I think, that term is that we are good coaches. There are good coaches who just happen to be of color. And I think once we can get to that moment where, it's just about the merit of your ability and your performance, then I think we've taken a massive step. And I think just the other side of that as well is just about representation. Now, you look at the male game, it's around 33% of players are black players or from an ethnic minority. But yet you look on the sidelines and that's not represented in the same way. So on the bench, very few black managers, black coaches. In the boardroom, even less representation as technical directors. So it's about that equal balance of representation across the levels of the game, especially highlighted in leadership roles. So for me, the more faces that I see that look like me at the highest levels of decision making, then we've made the progress needed.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Paul. Jono, over to you. What does true race equality progress look like once we raise ourselves from the knee?
It's a good question. So I did some work. I was part of an organisation called the Sports People's Think Tank that put together a number of bits of research in the 2015-16. I think the final report was done in 2018 that we still refer back to. And that's a concern in itself that we still refer back to the stats from 2018. If we are serious about moving the dial on this, we need to have the live data. We need to know where our coaches are. And one of the things outside of football is school. The education system needs to be reflective of modern day society. I don't want to be drawn back to talk about Black History Month, about slavery days. My culture, my DNA doesn't start from there. There's so much goodwill, there's so much success stories that is untold, untapped. There's so much positivity around Africa. Look at all the resources that Africa feeds the world with. So there needs to be more in education around so much around our culture first and foremost, which I think should be happening. And then my final point would be just lead it off to Paul's comments. The last report stated around 35% of players. You go into the managers, you're looking less than 5-6%. It never really goes above that. And even now, I probably can name 2 or 3, and then I'm starting to scratch my head. Then when you go into senior leadership levels, and I'm talking your CEOs, your financial director, your decision makers at the top end, and they're important because those are the ones that set the strategy that forms and trickles down your organization, that affects the staff, that affects recruitment, that affects your players, and then also your fan base, and then also can determine what sorts of companies are utilizing some of the needs of that local football community. So the organization from a senior leadership level needs to be more reflective of modern day Britain. And this isn't just about bringing people of color in. First of all, you've got to be qualified and being able to do the job. And that's where education starts. And that's for sport. We can talk about the NHS. You can go through the health, education. You can go through so many sectors where we are very few in number.
Thank you, John. Powell, last words to you on this question.
Top what Jono and Nev's just said. Well, to be honest with you, I feel once we're looked upon as equal, once there's an acceptance that people, black coaches, Asian coaches, whatever, can take senior leadership roles, have the knowledge, have the education, then football clubs and organisations are better for it. So there has to be an acceptance that we can develop. We are enablers. We want people to get better, and we can do it because we've made ourselves better. I think it is about decision makers. We do have small acorns. We do have schemes. We do have, you know, I've benefited from being on a scheme and a program, but I think it's got to go beyond that. When it gets beyond that, and when it becomes the norm, then I think we're looking at rising from the knee. Mm-hmm. Will that happen in my lifetime, our lifetime?
We can only hope.
Question to answer, but we can hope, and what we can do, more than hope actually, we could get on with what we're getting on with now. Yeah. We can actually sow the seeds and say, it's been going on too long, and we will still get upset. We will still not be happy, because sometimes it gets to a certain level. We've got to look beyond that level for my children and my children's children. End of story.
Fantastic. That's my questions. I've only taken up 54 minutes, Pete. So you have 4 minutes now. Hopefully we're going to a bit of injury time. Pete, over to you for some of the questions from obviously coaches and others that have registered.
Yeah, because chaps, I've got to say that was absolutely inspiring. I've got writers cramped the amount of notes that I was stealing off of you guys. So you're probably going to have to answer these questions quite quickly because Butch, as usual, is taking up all the time. Yeah. So I'll start straight away. So this one's going to go to you, Chris. This is from Ngai Si Yao from Hong Kong. And they say, South Koreans are now establishing themselves slowly within the game. What advice would you give British South Asians who still struggle to break through?
Break through in coaching or playing?
Both, probably both, yeah.
Both. I mean, yeah. South Asian player, we have a young player who made his debut recently here at my club. And fortunately or unfortunately, whatever way, he's going to be a role model. He's going to be. So we're actually preparing him as much as we can, because we know that history of South Asian players is not big, and it's a hurdle we all want to overcome. How do you overcome that? Well, as we experienced as black coaches, players, that we want to see people like us, and I truly hope he definitely has the ability and the personality to break through and inspire people to say, actually, I can do this. I can be a player. I can survive in the world of football. That's as a player. I think also as a coach, it's very similar as well. And there's so many hurdles that we're having to overcome. But basically, it's going to take time. And you're going to have to look at role models. You're going to have to look at people that have broken through to be the ones that maybe inspire you to, carry on your particular journey.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that, Chris. And my next question is to Paul. This is from Alexander Cox, and it is, as an ethnically diverse coach who hasn't played professionally, but coaching at a professional pre-academy in London, what advice would you give to a coach like myself in trying to make it as a coach in the professional game?
No, it's a really good question. And I think, I'm sitting on this panel, I'm looking at Jono and Chris and what they did in their playing career, as opposed to me. I only played a very low level, so League Two and Conference. So it was about educating myself. It was about the hard work and things we've talked about before, but there's no reason why you can't progress if you gain that knowledge. And it's the knowledge of coaching. And I touched on it earlier. It's about the other things you can bring to an environment as well. So, You know, if you haven't got that 500 Premier League games or Football League games, what else can you bring to the party to make the environment better, to improve the players? So again, it's just looking at what skill sets you can bring and developing the football side of your knowledge alongside that. So I think don't let that inhibit you. And I think looking even at the top levels, there are established managers that have not played at the highest level. Brendan Rodgers speaks to mind, that was a pro, got an injury and didn't really establish himself in that domain as a pro player. But yet, you know, you can see the qualities that he possesses as the highest level coach. So don't let it inhibit you. But again, looking at what skills and things you can also bring to the party.
That's brilliant. That's a great answer, because I think there's a lot of coaches out there who and I've come across them as well, who say, you know, I've never been a pro. What can I do? So that's a great answer, and I hope that helps you, Alex. So next one. This one's for you, Michael. This is from Ishmael Burke. Ishmael's from Algeria, so it shows that this is a worldwide webinar. So yeah, we're out there. So how do players continue to rise when faced with the racist incidents on the pitch? That's for you, Mike.
I think the support network is absolutely fundamentally crucial, especially those that have been before. So you hear, I think it was Paul spoke about one of the situations, what happened on camp, and being able to tap into someone like Powell's experiences. And I think that's fundamentally what's been key, is being able to support youngsters who may not understand reasons why, how to deal with it, how to actually come out the other end of it. And so the opportunity to tap into those unfortunately, who've experienced it and have gone before is a critical component in how you continue to be the best version of you, even after these events. And we've seen that happen with the likes of Marcus Rashford and Saka, who have been, especially Saka, who's come back in tremendous form. I know Marcus was injured, but it's something, it's worrying, because this shouldn't be happening in today's world. It should not be happening. But unfortunately, the players have to deal with it, and they're being supported as best as they can.
Okay, cheers. Again, another brilliant answer. I think it's again, it's that piece, isn't it? That if we don't tackle these issues head on, and we don't talk about them, they'll just continue to happen. So great, thanks for that, Mike. So the next one is for you, Chris. So, what are your proudest moments since joining your role in the England setup?
It'd be very easy for me to say what happened in the summer, without a doubt, because to experience being in a tournament, I never experienced that as a player, was quite amazing. And obviously progressing all the way to the final was something I never envisaged. But of course, we were there to win. We wanted to win. We wanted to go all the way. But I've got to tell you, actually, my very first camp, and actually standing on the touchline when we were about to sing the national anthem, my very first time, it actually makes you think, I'm doing this for real. I'm actually standing at Wembley alongside the England manager and assistant manager and other staff, and you're singing the national anthem. I mean, it's quite an amazing feeling, to be honest. I was very fortunate to do it as a player, but actually it's quite different as a staff member. And actually that resonated with a lot of other people who didn't know I was part of the England setup. And, I know you'll laugh, but going into the barber shop the very first time afterwards, they said, actually, we're now watching the national anthem because of you. And that's quite a good feeling, because I'm representing them.
Yeah.
And obviously they know me. They're saying, how good that is and what progress that is when you think of a lot of the journeys, our parents and what they've been through, my grandparents, to actually be part of an organisation like the FA and the England senior team. You can't really beat that.
Yeah. It's great what you say there about the barbershop, because one of the things about barbershop is that if you go in there, you can't be big time in the barbershop, can you?
No chance.
It's to put you in your place.
Walk straight back down to earth.
And that question was from Oliver Wedden. So the next one, and this is one for you, Michael. This is, what would you say to encourage non-white women to get into coaching?
I would just encourage them. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I would just encourage them to get into coaching. There's a lady from West Ham who I think I'm not sure if you know her, Paul, who I met on one of Butcher's courses.
Nicole Farley.
Yeah.
Nicole Farley.
Yeah.
Shout out to Nicole Farley.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's online, but she was so passionate about coaching. She wanted to bring her experiences, her culture to coaching. And it was somebody that I instantly connected with. And I feel that there's more women of all walks of life should embrace coaching. If you're good with people, if you have a passion for people, if you can interact with people, you can learn the rest. The rest can come. But I think fundamentally first, it's that core passion for developing, for interacting, for getting the best out of somebody. And this is something that I see in Nicole. And I think, as you've just mentioned, for me, more women of colour should absolutely 100% embrace it.
Brilliant. And that was that question was from Ola Fagbone. And I think that's a great question, because I think, again, it's this, how do we truly make the game for all, so that people feel that they have a place in the game. So the next question is for Paul. Paul, this one's for you. This is from Sherlyn Lindsay. And Sherlyn asks about the future generations of Black and Asian coaches. What role do you think you can play to keep inspiring them?
Well, I think that being at the forefront of the game, I think it's just being a positive role model if you can. And I think Michael enjoyed the term enjoying. I absolutely love what I do. And I hope that comes through to the players and just the people that are around in the football club. And I think Michael's just inspired me there. That last bit, you can feel his passion for, the human connection. And I just think, I want to be able to aspire. Hopefully I can continue to work at the highest levels possible, not only for my own self-fulfillment, but to show there is a pathway. And for all the things that we've talked about today in the non-negotiables, that if you stick to them, you can progress. And I've been fortunate and things have gone right, but sometimes your preparation enables you to be ready when the next thing comes. And I think, we all know that sometimes you say that it's luck, the more I work, the luckier I get. And I think it's that kind of scenario that we keep going, and your journey will take you a different route. But just keep striving and keep looking to your positive role models around you. And I think there's also, there are resources. Get in touch if you're not sure. And I think the question to Michael before about black female coaches, if you're not quite sure, I'm sure there's people at the FA that can signpost you to places and to courses and to networks that will give you the support that's necessary. So you're not on your own. And I think, ultimately, in the times where you start to wobble and things are difficult, you think of the kids, and you think of the kids that need to look to you. They need to see faces and genders that are the same as theirs, that inspire them. So when the going gets tough, think of that and keep ploughing on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. I think it's good to also let people know that we do in the FA have a women and girls department, and we also have a D&I section. And there are coach development officers who work in those departments who are there to support coaches. And just go onto the FA website and you'll be able to find out who to contact.
Pete Augustine, that was a shameless plug.
I know. I'm trying to keep my job. I'm trying to keep my job.
Pete, I've got no shame.
No shame. I want to stay employed. So get in touch.
Brilliant.
So this question's to you, Mike. Tamara Straker, what she wants to, they want to know. Sorry, what was the hardest barrier you had to overcome to get where you are now?
What was the hardest barrier?
Yeah.
Just before I answer that question, just quickly, Paul just pricked my conscience when he was answering the last question. Going back to Paul's answer, sometimes you as a coach are the closest for some of these young people that they'll see to some parental figure. And that's why it's so incumbent on us to show that unconditional love and caring during our coaching. You won't believe that sometimes you're their father, you're their advisor, you're their everything. So quickly on to the next question you just asked. Sorry, what was the question again?
I know I forgot as well. Now, Tamara asked, what's the hardest barrier you had to overcome to get where you are now?
Myself.
Yeah.
The hardest barrier was myself.
Oh, right. Okay.
There was a period of time, and I'm not going to lie, probably 3 years in, I'd sent 40 odd CVs off. I'd been fully qualified and it just wasn't happening. And I decided one morning to just say, that's me, done. No, one of my best friends is Darren Moore. Darren rang me. There was an LMA course. I'm trying to go through this quickly. It was an LMA course. And he said, you need to get down to West Brom's ground. It was at Hawthorns. And I said, Darren, I ain't going. I said, I'm done. And he said, if you don't get out your bed in the next half hour, I'm coming to Nottingham. I drive up and I'm banging your door down. Well, for those that don't know Darren, you don't want him banging your door down. So I quickly got changed, flew to West Brom and sat there, the old disinterested one. And Brendan Rodgers was on, and he said something that struck a chord in me. He said, when you're out of work, now's the time to work. And what he meant by that was when you're out of work, now's the time to rely on all your contacts, be professional, because that's what you've been in your life, Michael. But all those contacts that you've acquired over the number of years, now's the time to work. Go into clubs, ask to watch training, ask to meet them for a coffee, have those conversations. And literally it pricked my conscience back into action. And within 3 or 4 months, I was back in work based on that conversation. So that would be my advice that I'd give.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. That's brilliant. And now my final question. I think I've done quite well here to get these through. Okay. So this one's from Nicole Ashby Wade. Nicole asks, do you feel added pressure that you must succeed as a black coach? Is there a greater weight of responsibility on your shoulders? And that's to everyone. I'll start off with you, Nevs.
I think I don't think I probably should, but I do. And I think if the opportunity comes and that the time is right for me to look to get a manager's role in the future, I'm always very, very aware of, I need to give myself the best possible chance in regards to, the likelihood of success, because I'm not taking this on lightly, because it's not just about me. The success and failure, it does reflect unfortunately heavily on us in positions at this time, but it's something we need to embrace and take on. I'm not fearful for that, but I am very, very conscious that it needs to give me the best opportunity, because I need to succeed to leave the door open behind me.
Great. And you, Jono?
I think this question is a double-edged sword, and I'll tell you why. So when I look at some of our coaches, so I look at a Sol Campbell who goes down to Macclesfield, the odds are severely stacked against him in terms of being a success. And somebody once said to me, and it's so true, why can't I just be as bad as anybody else? Why can't I just be as dry as anybody else? Why do I have to be excellent to be proven that my worth? And Paul's right. You don't want to feel that pressure, but we ultimately know what comes with it. You just have to look at what happened in the Euros. The 3 boys, everybody on this platform knew what was coming. And so as a manager, if we went 2 or 3 or 4, if you get to 4, ultimately some persons unfortunately would turn that into a colour thing, when actually all you want to be known as bad as some other managers that have been really bad. But ultimately, I get your point. I totally agree with Paul on
that. Great. And Chris?
I've always said, and this was after getting my first role at Charlton, I used to always get this question aimed at me by journalists. The lack of black coaches, the lack of black managers. And I used to say, listen, I'm a manager who happens to be black. I'm a football manager that happens to be black. So I'm just like everyone else, but my skin colour is different. That is it. I'm still leading from the front. I'm still organising. I'm still managing people, managing players, speaking to boards. I'm doing exactly what everyone else is doing at the other 91 clubs. But there is a history. I think we're all aware of what's gone on before. I think, Paul's right in saying you are aware of it. You're always aware of it. But actually, you're a positive role model. It can be. You've got to be proud of who you are and where you're from. That shouldn't change. And you are who you are. If you have that leadership role, do it to the best of your ability. And you just want to be treated like everyone else. You don't want to be treated any differently. You want to be, as Jono says, you want to be as good or as bad as anyone else. End of story. But I was conscious that my behaviours would be looked upon stringently because of the history, the historic nature of not too many black coaches or managers in the pro game. So you are totally aware of it, but it shouldn't detract you from who you are and what you are and what knowledge and qualities you have. And you should just go and fly and do and be the best that you can be. And you know what? When you move on, that organisation, that group of people look and say, he's really good. Doesn't matter. They just look at it and say, he's left this place better than it was when he first joined. Horseshoe.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. That's the end of my questions. I'd like to, first of all, from my personal point of view, say thanks a lot. I'm going to pass you back to Butch in a second. But before I do so, just want to say very quickly to the three of you, I've met all of you briefly or for longer, and I've got to say, every time I've met you guys, I've been totally inspired. And a couple of times, I was hitting a bit of a dip myself, and when I've spoken to you guys, you pushed me back up again and kept me going. So I want to say a personal thank you to you guys, because every time I turn up, when I go to St George's Park or I go to Wembley, I see you guys, that just fills my heart full of pride that you guys are representing. So thank you so much for that.
Brilliant.
And finally, one thing, I've just put it in the chat box. There's a great event being held, Middlesex FA. We just mentioned the great man, Colin King. Take a look at that. Get yourself along. So that'll be another great webinar that will be happening very, very soon. Butch, over to you.
Thank you so much. We're only 18 minutes over. No problem. I'm sure there's a few that are still around. 3 words from me. First of all, a massive thank you to absolutely everyone on this call. But I think also some really, really, really important messages that have landed. But I've got to say, throughout this month, Pete Augustine was given the task of delivering the webinars right across the board, and also looking after Black History Month for the FA from our side at St George's Park. And I think he's did an absolutely fantastic job. Pete, I know how hard you've worked, so well done, my friend. You've done brilliantly. Those 3 words for me.
Butch.
No problem, my friend. Michael Johnson, Paul Nevin, Chris Powell, you have been absolutely amazing, uplifting, informative, inspirational. Just keep going, because if you don't, then that pathway will not continue. And I know for a fact there are a number of people out there, and we cannot leave without Chris over his right shoulder with the great man. Let's leave with the great words of Hugo himself. Chris, last words from you, Chris. What a guy. And if we remember anything, we remember great coaches like that, great coaches and great players like that man over your shoulder.
Yeah, he's left a real legacy at this club, and he wasn't here long, so it just shows how impactful Hugo was. There's a huge picture up in the corridor. But I found this picture when the offices were being redone, and I just said, that's only going one place, it's going in my office, because the impact he had on individuals. And I think Jono spoke about sometimes you can be that role model, that father figure for some of these players. Well, he was definitely that. He was learning all the time, but actually his presence and his knowledge of the game, people just gravitated to him. And I wasn't even here, but I kind of feel it when I speak to people. So we went up in the room, because I come in every day and I look at him. So it inspires me that I'm carrying on with people like him. We remember him every year in the garden, in the barbecue area. John McDermott spoke this year, and Luke Amos, who's gone on to QPR. And Luke is just talking about everything that he does from Hugo. So, Hugo is a big character still within this football club, and always will be.
Thank you so much. They were the final words. Thank you so much for your attendance. I really appreciate it. And if that doesn't sum up Black history, I don't know what does. That is a wrap. Thank you.